conditions really couldn't be any better here tonight. A very warm welcome to you on this fine evening. Guy Mowbray with you for commentary. Delighted to be joined by Sue Smith. And we've got action from division rivals coming right up. It's the Vipers, and they take on Fish and Chips.
Cheers, Guy. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm anticipating a good game today. The coaching staff have done all they can. Now it's about taking it onto the pitch.
Here's the lineup for the Vipers. Marc-Andre ter Stegen is in goal. Thiago Silva starts alongside Harry Maguire as the centre-backs. James Maddison plays alongside Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the centre of the park. And they've decided to go with two in attack for this game. The Vipers with acres of space to attack. This is today's Fish and Chips team. Iker Casillas starts in goal. Theo Hernandez starts alongside Bobby Moore in the centre of defence. David Beckham starts... Oh, that's not properly away. And the pass is incomplete. Nicely won. Loftus-Cheek. Del Piero. The assistant's flag is raised. That'll be offside. Careless there as the ball changes hands. That looks like a good advantage played. It's no surprise who we've picked out to have a look at here. What should we expect today, Sue?
Well, he's a unique talent, isn't he? The way he can beat defenders, he can dictate the tempo of the game. Suddenly when he gets on the ball, fans get off the seats.
Oh, top quality goalkeeping to deny what looked a likely goal. Played into the box. Kept out, but for how long? Unable to find anyone with that.
Hello guys, how you guys doing?
Delivered towards the back stick.
Hello
Let's
guys.
clear his lines now.
How you guys doing? Oh yeah, let's go!
A little sloppy on the ball there. Lam.
Oh yeah, let's go!
Trends here. It's cleared off the line. And the Vipers have given it away. Kane. On he goes. Terrific. Passing ball. This for the lead.
Oh,
Still in there.
what the hell?
That was looking good, but nothing to come from it. Pedri. They can't go any further here. Offside. Some good work to win it there. In the right position to cut out the pass. Maddison. Can he finish? And still danger here.
Ha ha ha. That's...
This is a good run. Now, can he pick out the right option? Bobby Moore. excellent reading of the game to win the ball. Looking to put the cross in. Huge ball, but still danger. In the way again. Harry Kane. Vipers moving the ball forward with purpose. Clivert. Michael Laudrup. Could be a chance to break here. And that might have ended up being better than it has. Got room to operate in here. Beckham. And that's nicely won to see off the threat. Del Piero. Now this has to be. And the keeper dealing with that very effectively. Del Piero. And denied by a top draw tackle. Making good progress here. Oh, a great chance. Excellent working goal there. Well saved. Read the pass well and cuts it out. Well, not long to go until the break. That wasn't a good tackle, and we could see a card show. And the referee shows the yellow card.
It's a bit of a naughty challenge. Had to go in the ball.
Careless in possession from the Vipers. Maguire. And that will be sorted out by the defender. Breaking at pace, this could be dangerous. Space now to get a crossover. That's a corner, so it could be a chance to level things. It's been delivered. That whistle brings the first half to a close.
All right, we're doing pretty good over here.
And we're off for the second half. Madison. Nicely played through. Well, I'm sure he thought he'd scored there. Great goalkeeping. Moving forward well. Beaten easily here. Pulisic. And that's a goal.
Ha ha ha!
That's gone begging.
Well, you've got to be composed and put that away. You're not going to get many chances easier than that to equalise.
That's a really good pick out. Turnaround in possession. Excellent positioning. Promising looking ball. What can they do from here? Chance for the equaliser. And the keeper more than equal to it. Corner kick played in. Got the corner away. A chance now for a quick transition. They need to get bodies back.
Oof!
It's in their tracks with a change in possession.
I was being stupid.
The Vipers pushing forward with options available. Oh, cheeky attempt.
Oh my God, he saved it again.
Gone for now. Christian Pulisic. Pulisic. Good looking ball played in.
Ah,
Great goal.
that was me being stupid.
Any better.
I missed so many chances.
Well, here it is again, and just look at how quickly they break forward, cause all sorts of problems. And then what about the finish? Catches it so sweetly. You probably could have had two keepers in there. I'm not sure that would have mattered.
They need to be better on the ball than that. Beckham. And that's nicely won to see off the threat. That looks like a good advantage played. It's nice vision to switch things. To put them ahead.
Ah,
Keeper does what he's there to do.
God damn.
David Beckham. That's not a bad looking ball. Madison. Harry Kane. Good work to regain possession. Genuine chance. Nice.
Ah,
And it's there. He's put that one away very nicely indeed.
As the replay shows, the goalkeeper does everything he can. He's a bit unfortunate it goes in, but question marks have to be asked of his defence. They could have certainly helped him out.
And the game stops with the award of a free kick. Love.
what?
On and ready to intercept that. This is a positive looking move. Space now to get a crossover. It had to be, but the defending ensured it wasn't. Could be a chance to break here.
Ah,
Just needs the composure now. Adama Traore. And the whistle goes. Free kick.
let me change Kane.
Awarded. They've lost it now. Could they take advantage here? Time's starting to be the enemy now. Aubameyang. And that's where it ends, with possession lost. Counter-attack coming, away they go. Need to get back here. And it's all been sorted out by the goalkeeper.
All the chances I lost,
Tell the
I guess.
crowd sent something here.
No wonder I'm
They're
failing.
really pushing the team on now.
Keeps himself in the way, well held. And the hard work pays off, they won the ball. And that's a throw-in, they'll have to win the ball all over again. Showing good width with this attack. Pulls it back. it's Iwobi. And the flag's up. Offside the call.
Oh my god! Holy shit.
Off we go then, 3-1 the score now. And that's it, all over here. It's not a result that will send the majority of the crowd home happy.
They certainly weren't at their best today. The passing just wasn't incisive enough.
Okay, let's go.
I can tell you it was a dry walk to the gantry today. No rain in sight. I'm Derek Ray, and ready with his tactics board alongside me is Stuart Robson, my commentary partner. And we're getting ready to bring you foot rivals action. It's United up against the Vipers.
Well, Derek, when looking forward to this game, you can't help but notice there are some great matchups all over the pitch, particularly in those central areas. Whichever team wins more of those battles will win the game.
A look at the starting 11 for United. Iker Casillas begins in goal. Joao Cancelo starts with Roberto Carlos in the fullback positions. Frenkie de Jong plays alongside Kevin De Bruyne in the centre of the park. And in attack, Jairzinho starts with Eusebio. Took a really smart piece of defending to stop them. Here's how it looks for the Vipers. Marc-Andre ter Stegen stands between the posts. Thiago Silva plays alongside Harry Maguire in central defence. Alex Iwobi starts alongside James Maddison in central
Let's go.
midfield. And Birgit Prinz starts with Harry Kane. Really wanting to shoot. No examination at all for the goalkeeper. And on that basis, he's got to be a bit cross with himself. Iwobi. Well, doesn't have to do it on his own. Iwobi. Can he put them in front?
Ow.
It was a wonderful chance, but the goalkeeper comes through.
Yes, Derek, we have to give credit to the keeper, but surely he should have scored there. That's a big, big chance.
Really fine piece of defending play to break us up. Showing a real will to win the ball. The makers of space for Vipers out wide. To give them the advantage.
Ow.
Wondering if it might go in, but crossbar instead.
Well, what a good effort that was. Just a fraction too high.
It has gone over the touchline for what will be a throw-in. Del Piero, able to clear the danger, at least for now. Moving the ball high up the pitch. Great example of it. Well, nicely cut out. Dicing with danger, giving Eusebio that amount of space. Will they play it in? Zelle. A good and fair challenge. Joao Cancelo. Shot attempted. And the keeper more than equal to it. Playing it short. Eusebio. Oh, that's textbook goalkeeping. Corner again. And the short option preferred. And quick thinking defensively. He will be. Oh, a super piece of play. And the flag has been raised here. Well, there can't have been a lot of that. Ontonan. Perfect tackle. Roberto Carlos was unable to hang on to the ball. That's good pressing for you. And pressing from the front. And Lam finding space on the wing. And Harry Kane ready to pounce.
Oh yeah. Let's go.
What a boost for his team. And the ball moving again. What sort of response will we see from them now? Zelle. He'll be delighted to have won the ball, having made that difficult challenge. Eusebio. And there it breaks down, but credit to the defence. Encouraging stuff from United. Does he shoot? The fans hope so. Well-timed tackle. He has teammates around him. Roberto Carlos. Textbook defending inside the box. And the counter-attack is on. Options available. That break looked so promising, but nothing coming from it. Gabriel Martinelli. More than decent this from United. Must be! Can they put it away? Oh, he's blocked it! De Jong. Very quick thinking there.
Well, they're creating chances. They now just need to take one of them. Mind you, what a save that was.
Well, attacks are plenty, but now defensive resilience is what's called for. super piece of defending. Eusebio. And now Eusebio. What a commitment to defending. So the whistle then. We're up the halfway stage in this match.
That was crazy, guys. That was crazy. We have a narrow lead. We have a narrow lead.
Craigslist because I always found it sketchy.
So back underway with United looking to plot a route back into this game.
When I moved out of my parents' house and into my own apartment, I had a lot of junk and stuff that I needed to get rid of. I never liked Craigslist because I always found it sketchy, especially after hearing so many stories about it. So I listed a lot of my things on Facebook Marketplace. Things that wouldn't fit in my apartment and that my dad wanted out of the house. My weight set, some old childhood toys, book sets, and a whole bunch of other things. The weight set was what I listed for the most money. It had a barbell, a plate food stand, and a bunch of plates. I was selling it for $340, which I thought wasn't a bad deal. Surprisingly, I wasn't getting many bites. I'd have some people here and there message asking if it's still available, and then never message me again about it. Until a few days after posting it, a guy named Joe messaged me showing interest. His profile picture was pretty grainy, but it was a guy with a fishing hat on holding up a fish. His account info was private. I couldn't see how many friends he had or anything, only that we had 3 mutuals. All 3 of them were girls from my town. The guy's last name was also the last name of a Joe I knew from my town who used to date a girl I was somewhat friendly with. So I right away assumed it was him, especially since I knew that guy liked to fish.
Oh yeah!
After telling him it's still available, he said, "Great, when can I pick it up?" I was pleasantly surprised he didn't try to haggle the price down at all. I said I'm available any night after 7. He said he could come by tonight around 11 p.m. after work. I said that's fine. A little late in my opinion, but if that's what worked for his schedule, it worked for me. I then decided to just be a little friendly and say, "Hey, you used to date Gina, right?" I saw the typing indicator in the chat for a second, but then it went away and he didn't reply. Not for a couple minutes. Then he said yes. I thought it was a little strange, the random pause, but it could have been anything. Maybe he thought it was weird I brought it up. So I just said, "I knew I recognized your name, LOL. He read the message, but didn't respond for half an hour. Then I got a message back from him saying, "Yeah, LOL. Can you send me your address and I'll let you know when I'm coming?" So I sent him my address. He read it and didn't respond for many hours. By the time I got home from work, it was around 6. I went to the gym and got back around 7:30, the whole time waiting for some kind of acknowledgement from Joe. And then he finally messaged back asking for my number. I gave it to him, and seconds later, I got a text from a number with our area code. I have an iPhone, and when I texted him back, it was green. I sometimes will find that to be a red flag and possibly scams, because most people I know have iPhones. But I wasn't thinking that way with this, because I knew this guy already. He said he'd be over in a few hours, and so I continued about my business. It was now around 11 o'clock, and I was waiting patiently for his text or call. I sent a follow-up saying, "Let me know when you're coming." It was around 11:30 that he texted me, "I'm here, come out." I looked out the front window of my apartment, and I saw a dark-colored car out front in the street. I tried calling him so I could tell him that I need help bringing the weights outside. He rejected my call, then he texted again, "Yo, come out." I texted back, "I see you. You can come in. I just need help with the weights. There's a lot of them." He texted back, "Nah, gotta see if you're straight first." I had to process what the hell that even meant for a second. All I knew was this did not seem like the way this white-as-hell phishing dude would be texting. I tried calling one more time, and he denied the call again. Now I was suspicious. I decided to text that girl Gina, along with the mutual friends I had with Joe on Facebook. The first one to text back was this girl Angela, who said, "OMG, that's a catfish, someone's pretending to be him." When I asked why she added it, she said it must have been a different name when it added her. I looked out the window again, and the car was still there. Someone was about to do something bad to me. I wasn't sure what, or who, or why. I had no way to contact the real Joe because he didn't seem to have any actual social media profiles. Not public, at least. I kept the door shut and locked and didn't respond any further. I turned off the light in the living room and kinked the blind just a bit. And I swear on my life, there was a guy hiding behind one of the bushes in front of the house. I watched until the car outside honked its horn. And then I saw the guy in the bushes run to the car, and then the car sped off. Witnessing that, I didn't feel relief. I felt gut-wrenching fear, not only of what I just narrowly avoided, but the fact that those people now had my address. The Facebook profile was deleted the next day, after a bunch of people reported it, though I think the people who made the account deleted it or deactivated it themselves. Joe himself confirmed he had nothing to do with any of that, and that someone must have been using his pictures and name to try and scam people in the area. Though I'm not so sure it was someone trying to scam random people, because days later, I got this threatening text. "Hey, yo, bitch, watch your back. You know where you live. Keep trying to talk to my girl, see what happens, man. We'll pick you up right outside your crib. Sleep with one eye open, pussy, we watching." I brought this to the police, but it was such a low priority report to them that I doubt they ever even looked into it. I have no reason to lie when I say I haven't tried talking to anyone's girl in the slightest. At the time of this incident, I had been seeing a girl pretty much exclusively. I think it's connected. I don't know who it is. I don't know what they were going to do to me if I opened the door. But unfortunately, I've had to live in slight fear in my new apartment ever since moving here. Fortunately, I haven't gotten any more threatening or random texts, but I still pretty much always check outside my windows first before leaving the apartment at night.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It had to be 2018. I was selling this old pinball machine that we had from our childhood. It wasn't some crazy arcade-level pinball machine that would cost thousands of dollars, but it was definitely worth a few $100. It had been sitting in my parents' attic for the longest time, so I wanted to sell it before one of my sisters had the same idea. I didn't really want anyone to know about this because then I'd have to split the money, so I chose to list it when my family was away on a trip that I couldn't go on due to work. I'm a bit of a sneak, I know, but you gotta do what you gotta do. My parents' house is on the really nice side of town, but not in a gated community. I put the pinball machine up on Facebook Marketplace for $200. The next day, I got a message from some account with no profile picture with the name Jasmine, expressing interest in the pinball machine. They offered $175. I agreed to that number. He set up a time for when she would come, but when that time came, she never showed up. She messaged me saying, "I'll be there soon, I'll be there soon." It was getting late now, and I had work the next day. I asked her if she would be here by 11 the latest. She said 11:30. I asked if we could do this tomorrow instead, but she said she's already on her way. So I just stayed up a little later waiting. 11:45 rolls around, and she finally tells me that she's here. I went to the front door and saw there was a car out front. What I wasn't expecting was to see all 4 doors of the car opening, and 4 people stepping out. 1 girl and 3 guys. I messaged her, "Are you here with people?" At this point, she wasn't answering her messages anymore. I watched as the 4 people approached my door. I kept the storm door locked. These 3 guys looked kind of big, and all 4 of these people looked like trouble. As they got close enough, I said, "Are you Jasmine?" She said through the door, "Yeah." I said, "I can't let all of you guys in my house. My parents are asleep." Obviously lying. Jasmine, or so she claimed her name was, tried opening the door yelling, "What are you talking about?" As she saw it was locked, she started knocking on glass. I decided it was best to shut the front door at this point. I heard their voices yelling outside for a while and the doorbell ringing. I heard one of the guys, or maybe even multiple of them, yelling obscenities and insults at me through the 2 doors, making me only gladder I didn't let them in. These were not the kinds of people I wanted in my parents' house, especially when I'm alone. I realized this whole thing was an awful idea. I heard their voices laughing and yelling on the front stoop for like 10 minutes after I shut the door. I looked out my little brother's bedroom window upstairs, which is directly above the driveway, and I saw one of the guys pissing in the empty driveway. No cars in the driveway was not a good look. The girl yelled something directed at me as they finally started to walk away, but I didn't hear what it was. I just thanked the Lord when they drove away. I went upstairs to go to sleep. I was having trouble sleeping that night, though, thinking of the interaction. So, fully awake, a couple of hours after climbing into bed, I heard a crash from downstairs. It was unmistakably the sound of a window being shattered. I sprang up, but right before sprinting to make sure the bedroom door was locked, I stopped myself and instead quietly got out of bed and tiptoed to the door. I had already locked it. I tiptoed back to my bed and had my phone in hand, ready to call 911. For some stupid reason, I was waiting till I heard any other kind of sound before dialing, and eventually, I heard the sound I needed to hear. Footsteps rapidly coming upstairs. I dialed 911 as I felt like throwing up. The footsteps outside the room didn't even sound like they were trying to be quiet. I whispered the entire time I was on the line with the dispatcher. Time was moving in reverse. I hid literally under my bed as I listened to people ransacking the house. In reality, they were in and out in less than 5 minutes, way before the police actually showed up. The backyard window was shattered. Things were stolen from just about each room. Ironically, the pinball machine wasn't taken. What happened from there was I got a police report number, made an appointment to see a couple detectives at the police station, and shared with them all the details I had, including the Facebook account of the Jasmine girl. I fabricated a story a bit, saying someone in the house threatened me. My reasoning for this was I felt that this case would actually be taken seriously if I claimed I was threatened. To my surprise, they did take this seriously. The detectives apparently gathered the necessary data of the Facebook account in question to track this Jasmine girl, who lived a few towns over in a less than desirable area. And with a search warrant, they searched her house and found multiple belongings stolen from my parents' house. She ratted out the 3 men who accompanied her. They were all charged with burglary. I think most of the stuff that was stolen was recovered. I'm sure there were some things that I wasn't aware of that were stolen that were never returned, but to this day, it hasn't come up, so it's fine. I think by me claiming I was verbally threatened may have definitely helped make the detectives take this more seriously, but I could be wrong. My family was of course livid at first, but came to be understanding about it in the end. I was searching Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for a new phone. This was a long time ago, so it had to be like an iPhone 7 or something. Phones still had the home buttons back then. I found this listing for a phone. It was some generic looking post. iPhone whatever for sale, new around $300. It was a really, really good deal for the time, that I remember. He told me all the small details I needed to know, that it was factory unlocked, never opened, and stuff like that. He sent me a video of the box too, still sealed. The guy, whose name was Melvin, seemed nice and easy to talk to over text. I got his number and we discussed a pickup point. His location on the Facebook ad was much closer to me, but over text he was telling me he was only there this morning. Now he went about an hour north. I wasn't happy about this, but this was a really good deal and I didn't want to pass it up. I started asking a bunch of friends if they'd want to come on an adventure with me. Really just a way of making the chore of accompanying me for an hour drive seem fun. My friend Martina actually agreed to come with, on the promise that I buy her food for coming. So this Melvin guy sent me the address of a police precinct about an hour away, saying he only does deals in police precinct parking lots to avoid scams. I obviously had no problem with this. In fact, it made me feel a little more confident in this whole thing. I picked up Martina on the way around 8:30 at night, and off we went. She being in the car and having someone to talk to made the trip more fun. It was also a Friday night, so afterwards we could go out and do whatever we wanted. When I got off the highway, we were about 10 minutes away, and we found ourselves in a very secluded, quiet area. It seemed like a lot of different wooded areas. Occasional buildings and houses, and then more woods. We got to the police precinct, and there was no one visibly parked in the parking lot, besides empty police cars, of course. We drove around the whole building a couple times and didn't see this Melvin guy, who said he was in a black Altima. So I decided to call him. He picked up and said he's having issues with his car on the side of the road, and asked if I could come to him. He sent his location and I checked it. It was on the side of some random road with nothing on either side. And by nothing, I mean woods. That's the kind of area we were in. He asked me to come help him jump his car. He had jumper cables. I said, yeah, I guess I could do that. And we drove the hour to get there. I didn't want to just drive another hour for nothing. Martina was shaking her head the whole time I was on the phone. The guy said, see you soon, and hung up. Martina then basically screamed, no way, this is sketchy, we're going home. I told her we'll just drive past the location he sent and see what's up. I did agree with her though. This seems incredibly sketchy. I just was very upset if we drove 2 hours for nothing. We did drive to the location, and when we got to it, we saw the reflection of a car's front lights coming up on the pitch black road we found ourselves on. As we got closer, I slowed down. It was in fact a black car, but we couldn't see anyone inside or outside of it. Mind you, it was very dark, but I feel like we would have seen someone's head on the inside or something. Martina said to just keep driving, and I said I know. It was about the sketchiest thing I'd ever seen. A pitch black road between two patches of woods. No streetlights, no other cars in sight. A pretty convenient place to break down and have someone who's coming with a wad of cash to buy something from you come and meet. I drove right past it. Immediately, Melvin starts calling me over and over. I ignored every single call. Then he texted me saying, I saw you just pass me, why didn't you stop? Turn around. Ignored. Martina is a very positive person, so she laughed about this whole situation and then said, okay, you owe me food. So I looked up the nearest diner. We stopped there for some food. It was a quiet, small diner. We were just about the only people in there, even on a Friday night. The waitress just took our coffee order when a lone guy with his hood up steps into the diner and sits in one of the bar stools. He was wearing a navy blue, dirty-looking hoodie. He glanced over to Martina and I, then looked straight ahead, talking to the lady working behind the counter, apparently ordering a coffee. The man kept glancing at our table like every minute, so I whispered to Martina, don't look now. That guy at the counter might be the Melvin guy. The waitress came with our coffees and asked if we were ready to order. I said a few minutes, please. And the lady behind the counter handed that man his coffee. He said loud and clear, thank you, darling. It was that guy from the phone's voice, Melvin or whatever his real name was. I told Martina that's him. We need to pay the check and leave. I waved the server over and whispered to her if we could just get the check. She asked if something's wrong, and I noticed the guy look over as I said this. I said yes, we just needed some coffee for the road. So she got the check, I paid, we downed our coffees, and left the building. We got in my car, and Martina said, oh my God, he's getting up. I looked into the diner and saw that guy leaving towards the door. As quickly as possible, I drove us out of that parking lot and sped down the road. And yes, we noticed the black car in the parking lot that could have been the one that we saw on the side of the road. I was driving too fast for him to have caught up. We got back on the highway, and I was flying for a while, until I got a low tire pressure light come on. I knew instantly he slashed my tire. The PSI was going down fast, so to avoid damage, I pulled to the side of the highway and parked it. I went out to confirm that my tire was slashed.
Oh yeah.
I had to replace the tire with a spare, which took about 15 minutes. The whole thing was a disaster. And if you're wondering, yes, I still got Martina dinner that night. Now Martina and I look at it as a crazy story that we can look back on and tell people. It's absolutely horrifying, though, how close we were to walking into a trap.
A real attacking intent from the Vipers. A wonderful intervention. Well, had no intention of losing out.
Okay, let's go, guys. Let's go.
Breaking at pace is always a possibility. Mazraoui. This could be the equaliser. But no, when you go, you become something of a side like that. Late in the game, you've cause to be thankful.
Well, that could be a key moment. They have to take those chances.
Welcome
They
back
won't
to
be
the
cheap
channel.
anymore, but let's credit the goalkeeper.
If you're new here and you enjoy horror films, you should join us by clicking subscribe. I upload new stories every single night. Steven White reports wild, and the office was the last place I wanted to be.
Opportunistic at this stage of the game.
I'd just landed a big contract for the company, so nobody would complain if I left to celebrate early. I got home and headed straight to the kitchen. I poured a glass out of the cabinet and grabbed a bottle of whiskey before shuffling into the living room. I poured myself a glass, gulped the whole thing down, and ran another. I did the same over and over. Eventually, I passed out, and I woke up after 2 hours. A banging headache and blurry vision greeted me from all the liquor I'd just consumed. I got up and staggered to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror before vomiting into the toilet. I cleaned myself up and took a long bath before coming out with new energy and a stilled resolve. I didn't like working. I really hated it. But having to see my own girlfriend cheat on me while at work, that's a whole nother level of depression. I picked up my phone and logged back into my old Tinder account. The last time I used the app was 2 years ago. I blocked Emily on everything I had her on. I didn't want to see her face ever again. And quite frankly, she clearly had a better guy than me. I still knew my way around Tinder. I've been using it since I was a teenager. I swiped right on 5 different women. 3 of them eventually texted me back a few days later. I didn't even take the time to get to know any of them before just fixing a date. I guess you could call it a revenge date. They weren't anything special, but I still found them moderately attractive. I returned to the office later that day like nothing happened. I greeted everyone like I usually did, and finished the work on my desk before going home to prepare for my first date. I got home and showered before changing into some fancy clothes. I combed my hair into style before grabbing my phone and keys and heading out. I drove to the restaurant and met with her. We got something to eat, and she began the conversation by talking about her pet. I wasn't even interested in getting to know her or getting into a relationship with her. I was only interested in using her for a one-night stand. She was simply the first lady I was going out with, the first match on the app. We finished eating, and I started feeling a little dizzy. I thought it would go away with time, but it only got worse as we talked. I think she noticed it and offered me to get some water. She left the table and returned with a bottle of water. I drank the whole thing, and the dizziness immediately became worse. She started telling people that I was her boyfriend and I was having an allergic reaction. I tried to talk and defend myself, but my mouth felt numb and it felt like my throat was closing. I could barely swallow. On top of this, my brain was too slow to make any rational decisions at the moment. I watched helplessly as people carried me into her car and
Excellent reading of the game to win the ball.
I once booked an Airbnb by myself in an area in Arizona that I had a job interview. Since it was so far from home, I made a short trip out of it. I went with this one specific Airbnb because it was much cheaper than any hotels I could find. It was about half an hour away from where I'd be interviewing for, which was fine with me. It was off some dead-end, secluded road, and it had a nice view of the desert in the backyard. I brought my laptop with me to get work done at my at-the-time current job during the day, so that kept me busy most of the days I was there. I stayed for 3 days. My interview was on the second day that I was there, which was a Tuesday. I would be leaving Friday, so on Monday, the night before my interview, I was practicing interview questions for this specific company, and just generally getting some last-minute knowledge on their firm. I was doing this on my laptop in the living room of the little house, probably around 9 p.m. There was a tap at the window. I say tap because it wasn't exactly a knock. It sounded more like it could have been someone's finger. My head, of course, swung to the left to look at the window in reaction. I didn't see anyone, but it was also pitch black outside. I was kind of scared to look out the window, but I had to be man and just do it. And there was no one as far as the eye could see, just darkness. Of course, maybe it could have been a bug hitting the window. We've got some pretty nasty bugs here after all. The next day, I got through my interview and thought I did pretty well. So for the rest of my little trip there, I explored different parts of the town in my car, ate at different restaurants, and sat in the backyard and relaxed in the sun. Little did I know, I was likely being watched while I was in the backyard. That night, I was inside watching Breaking Bad on Netflix. It happened again. A single tap at the window. Now it was obvious it wasn't a bug. I was even more disturbed now, but once again rushed to the window. Even though I saw no one, that didn't mean someone wasn't out there. I checked the windows by the front door, then opened the door and looked outside for a second. Since there was no one there, I went back inside and then went to the back door. I stepped outside onto the back porch and looked out to the desert behind the house. Silence and darkness. Then I heard a click. A sound someone made, like clicking their tongue at the roof of their mouth. It was off in the distance, beyond the light from the house. It was out somewhere in that cold desert. I felt as though someone could be hiding behind any number of those bushes, watching me and toying with me. I yelled out, almost as if they did it in response. There was another click. I pinpointed the direction it came from and looked that way. I could see someone now, standing not too far away, dressed in dark clothes, blending into the darkness of the desert. I started walking a little closer, then stopped, realizing I didn't want to get any closer to that person. I called out, "You're on private property. I'm gonna call the cops if you don't leave." And I saw the person eerily quickly walk away. I theorized it was the Airbnb owner, but obviously that was a stretch, and I didn't really know what to actually think. The night following, I was in my bed on my laptop watching Breaking Bad again before going to bed. I think I watched 2 episodes, so I was doing this for about an hour and a half. I didn't hear any noises in the house, though I was definitely giving thought to that encounter from earlier while watching the show. When I finally turned off the light in the room and tried to fall asleep, within 10 seconds, there was a click sound again, muffled from the inside of the closet. I looked at the closet door, which was open just a crack. And a pretty natural response, I sprang off the bed, still in my PJs, and ran to the car. I sat in the driveway with the car running, and I called 911. I stared at the house as I spoke to the dispatcher, waiting to see if someone would come out, as all of my stuff was still in there. A police car arrived, and upon entering,
Please subscribe, guys. Please subscribe, and please hit the like button. Please subscribe.
Places to hide. Conclusively, I still packed my stuff and left that place that night for a nearby hotel. I contacted both Airbnb and the host, and was only able to get a partial refund for my stay. I still think it may have been the host of the Airbnb. Who else would have access to the house? There were no signs of forced entry, which leads me to believe whoever it was may have had a key. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was a stranger who snuck in at an opportune time.
Looking to cut inside. Oh, good Haaland. Still wanting to split the two sides. Maybe that will change with this corner.
My wife Cheryl and I have been together for 10 years. We got married 2 years ago. We just got a house together not even a month ago, and things couldn't have started on worse notes. We moved to a small inland town of Georgia called Waycross. That's all the details I'm giving, though, to avoid any more possible issues. We're on a quiet street with a big property that sits in front of a medium-sized patch of woods, which is one of the factors that really appealed to my wife and I. We plan to adopt a dog and raise kids here, so we wanted a big property for the dog and kids to play around on. We both work similar shifts. I get home around 5, and she gets home around 6 most of the time. The first 2 nights in the house went completely normal. It was the weekend, so we spent our entire days unpacking. It wasn't until Monday night, when we were both in bed, only having turned the lights out maybe 20 minutes ago, that outside from the backyard, there was the sound of this blasting music. Our nearest neighbors on either side were spaced out enough where we couldn't mistake music from their yards being in our yard. It was definitely in our backyard. It wasn't party music or anything like that. It sounded like very old, staticky, vintage music. The windows were shut, so after my wife and I exchanged horrified glances at each other and wondered where the music could be coming from, I opened my window on my side of the bed, and it was much clearer. There was some song that sounded like it was from the 1940s or something blasting. I later found out, after looking up the lyrics, that the song name was Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf by Henry Hall. It has a slight eerie vibe to it for some reason, even though it was meant to be a happy song. But at the time of listening to it coming from our backyard, it was nothing but downright horrifying. We were still learning the house, but we figured there must be a backyard light switch downstairs. I ran downstairs to the back door and flicked the light switches next to the door, and one of them turned on the backyard lights. I didn't see anyone in the backyard. I opened the door, and the music was louder, obviously. As I walked out into the grass, I realized it wasn't coming from the backyard, rather from the woods. The song played to completion as I was outside in the yard, just standing there looking around. When the song ended, there was silence again. It seemed like someone must have been playing some stupid housewarming prank, but it wasn't appreciated. I went back to my wife and told her it was probably just some kids trying to scare the new ones in town for whatever reason. Hearing myself even say that, I realized how stupid and weird it sounded. Why would anyone do that? The next night, it happened again. A few minutes after we turned out the lights in the bedroom, music from outside started blasting. This time much louder, and the song playing was that song everyone's heard, Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Cheryl and I once again looked at each other, this time in genuine disgust and worry, because we had hoped it was just going to be a one-time thing, but it was happening again. I looked out the window, and this time I could see something on the grass. It wasn't a person, but there was definitely something out there. I told my wife I was going to check it out. She said we should just call the cops, and I said, yeah, we will in a second. I went out there with this mindset that I need to establish I'm the man of the house, not just to my wife, but to whoever was thinking they could mess with us just for being the new people on the block. When I was in the yard, I saw the object in the grass was smaller than I had thought. The blaring, creepy song was coming from it. I realized it was an old radio. I turned it off and looked up at the window at my wife, who was watching, and I held it up, yelling that someone left it there to scare us with the music. What she did next was not something I expected in response to that. She started screaming my name to run inside. She kept screaming, run. I yelled, why? And she screamed back, there's people standing behind you. This statement made my heart skip a beat. I turned around to face the woods. I saw 3 figures standing like 6 feet apart from each other, clearly facing my direction. They weren't running at me. They were just standing there. I yelled, oh shit, and ran back inside the house, slamming the door behind me. My wife was upstairs, hysterical, crying already. I told her I'd call the cops, and I did. They arrived thankfully not that long after. All the while, we were scared to hear knocks at one of the doors or windows. My wife and I desperately explained the situation to both of the police that arrived, and I showed them the radio on the ground. I asked them if they could take it back with them as evidence for prints. I told them I only touched the top part with the handle. They did take the radio. They also checked the front of the woods with their flashlights for a few minutes, probably just as a deterrent to the people in the woods to stop their behavior if they were still there. When the police left, honestly, we went right back to feeling vulnerable and scared. But thank Christ the people never returned. This was only a few weeks ago, though. God forbid they came back, I'd try to get it on video. I've worked as a nurse in multiple hospitals and facilities. Before the current hospital I work at, I worked at a geriatric hospital 30 minutes from my house. I had experience working with older patients before, so this was nothing new to me. I had been working at this hospital for only a couple of weeks, and you'll soon understand why. This was on my second to last shift at this hospital, unbeknownst to me at the start of that night. I was working the graveyard shift, and I was running on negative hours of sleep. I was assigned to the Alzheimer's ward. The patients in this ward absolutely adored me. My presence as a young girl in her 20s among the residents of this ward who were otherwise left to themselves to float around in their minds, I'm sure saw me as a breath of fresh air, someone who could tie them to the now or to the everyday. If you're just left to yourself, you can mentally go to other places, but with someone else in your space, you're tied to that moment in time. I was dealing with a number of patients that night, but one was a little more restless than the others. Her name was Lena. This was my first night dealing with her. She kept telling me anytime I'd enter her room about the voices she kept hearing and the man dressed in black she kept seeing in the corner of the room. The other lady in her room requested her curtain be closed before my shift started so that Lena would leave her alone. She was a sweet lady that smiled whenever I was around her, but she didn't say much and was very forgetful. Since I started my shift around 9 p.m., most of the patients were asleep by 11, but not Lena. Whenever she called me into the room, she'd be frightened of these alleged voices she was hearing and the man in black that kept staring at her in the corner of the room. Not gonna lie, it was creeping me out a little. I believed that in her mind she was seeing and hearing these things, and I sympathized with her because I imagined them to be very scary. But still, I tried my best to calm her down and get her to go to sleep. I didn't want to turn on the TV to calm her down because I wanted to be courteous of the other patient in the room. I held Lena's hands and told her it's okay, to breathe and to relax. I reminded her that she wasn't here alone, and I was always just a call away. This seemed to do the trick. Lena relaxed for a while, and the next time I came in the room, she was asleep. Once most, if not all, of the patients are asleep, the night goes much slower. Time almost moves in reverse. An hour or two later, I was in the linen room stocking my car. I heard something in the room. It was a relatively small, dead quiet room. I had the door closed too. That's why hearing another noise was weird. I turned, saw nothing, and resumed stocking my car. Then I felt what I can only describe to be a hand on my shoulder. I looked at my shoulder, jumped, and screamed, but there was nothing on my shoulder. There was no one in the room. Yet I knew I felt something large basically grab my shoulder. I went out in the hall for a second to peek my head. No other nurses in sight. Dead quiet. I had nothing else to do but resume what I was doing. I continued stocking the cart until it was full. Then I turned to face the door. And I fell to the floor and started screaming as my heart was immediately in my throat. There was a man dressed in black standing outside the door, looking through the glass, smiling. My screams were loud enough to wake the entire ward. The man disappeared out of sight through the glass window of the door. Seconds later, the door opened and one of my fellow nurses came in to help me off the floor as I was hysterical. I asked her if she saw the man dressed in black. Her response was, "What man? There's no one else here." We checked all the rooms in the ward. There wasn't anybody dressed in black in there. My screams woke Lena from whatever light sleep she must have been in. And when I came into her room, she started talking of the voices. This time the screams, which she didn't know were my screams. I asked her what this man in black looked like, if he was smiling. And she looked at me, and I noticed her eyebrows point down, as her expression changed to look the most focused I'd seen her the entire day. She asked, "How did you know?" And even with my heart still racing, I felt it skip a beat as she said this. She started screaming now, screaming, "Get me out of here, he's coming." The other nurses came in and tried to calm her down. I was switched to a different ward that night with someone else, and I eventually ended up going home early because I was just so freaked out. I texted the head nurse the next day that my next shift would be my last, that the experience traumatized me, and that I didn't really want to be in that building anymore. I got as friendly of a response as I could have hoped for. I've never been diagnosed with anything, nor have I ever dealt with hallucinations of any kind. I'm aware of the effects of lack of sleep, but this was next level. I don't know if my mind started playing tricks on me from what Lena was telling me all night, but the feeling of the hand on my shoulder, the image of the smiling man behind the glass door, matching the description a patient kept giving multiple times. This was one of those once-in-a-lifetime, unexplainable supernatural occurrences. At least, I hope it was once in a lifetime. I was driving home from work one night, taking my usual route home. I got out at midnight.
Please hit the like button and please subscribe, guys.
At this point. My town is pretty quiet and boring. A lot of woods everywhere, not a lot of people or houses. I was on this road not far from my house with a cornfield on one side and a patch of woods on the other. It was midsummer and like 75 degrees, so I had my convertible top down. I was cruising down the street going like 50 when I heard a loud, blood-curdling woman's scream come from one side of the road, but I couldn't tell which one. I brought the car to a quick halt by slamming on the brakes and listening. There was a woman's cry from the left side, in the woods. She was crying for help. I got out of my car and grabbed the baton from my back seat. I walked towards the woods and called back, "Who's out there?" And the woman immediately called back, "Please help me." I began to run into the woods, swiping all the twigs and bushes out of my way. I yelled out to the woman to keep screaming so I could find her. She'd every 10 seconds or so scream help, and I'd approach in that direction, running, screaming back. But pretty soon, I started to realize no matter how far into the woods I went, the woman's yells didn't seem to get any closer or louder. If anything, they were always the same distance, even though I was booking it straight in the direction of the screams. I screamed out, "Tell me where you are," and about 5 seconds later, the woman once again screamed out help. I stopped in my tracks now. I didn't like this. I started to feel like I was walking into some kind of trap. I turned around and started running back in the direction I came. I ran and ran until I could see the flashing headlights of my car on the side of the road beyond the trees. The whole way back, I still heard the woman's screams, but they were still the same distance no matter how much closer to my car I got, as if she were following me back. Was I being stalked? I got in my car and just drove out of there, completely freaked out. I called 911 to report it to the authorities in case they'd want to investigate it. I wasn't sticking around there though, I was tired. After telling a few friends and family about the strange encounter, I was ready to move on with my life. But a week later, I saw something on the news that made me sick to my stomach. The dead body of a 30-something-year-old woman was found in the woods by a man hiking with his dog. Oddly, there were no signs of foul play. The location that the body was reported to have been found was the same general area where I heard the screams. While that patch of woods is very big, I can't help but feel that would be a huge coincidence.
Oh, yes, please. There aren't many who'd even try that.
Back before my girlfriend Jenny and I officially started dating, we would still hang out all the time. We both snowboard, and her family has a little cabin-type house in Vermont, not far from Stowe Mountain Resort. This was around our maybe 10th time hanging out. She invited me to go up there for a weekend with her to go snowboarding for the first time together. It was like a 5-hour drive. We neared her little house. We spent about half an hour on this very windy, secluded road on which we'd pass occasional driveways that would lead up into properties blocked off by walls and trees. We were way up there in the mountains. The sight of other cars by this point was something to behold. It really felt like we were alone up there. A lot of the driveways didn't even have tire marks in the snow, meaning even a lot of the houses were void of people. Jenny told me that's because a lot of the houses here were owned by people out of state, just like her situation. I was going like 30, and she yelled at me to slow down, it's coming up. So I hit the brakes, and this little opening in the trees that I otherwise would have missed came up. We drove this narrow trail in 4-wheel drive, which led to this small house covered in snow. It looked incredibly cozy. We parked, and the first thing we did was turn the heat on in the little house. We unloaded our stuff inside, and since it was already getting dark that night, we just cooked some of the food we packed for dinner and watched a movie. Pursuit of Happiness, actually. So the house had just about everything. Heat, electricity, except running water. Her family had jugs and jugs of water for important things like washing hands and plates and stuff. But there was no working toilet, so she told me we had to use the outhouse outside. I only had to go pee that night, so I just went out to the front deck and peed into the snow. It was also snowing out that night. We fell asleep at some point during the second movie we watched. We woke up pretty early to our phone alarms. We wanted the freshies on the mountain. We started getting ready to drive up to the ski resort. After breakfast, I had to go out to the outhouse, though. I ran out to the outhouse in my shoes, and my feet started to freeze. On my way to the outhouse, though, I saw footprints in the snow. They were kind of big, but I couldn't tell if they were boot marks or animal prints. I followed the trail, and it actually wrapped around the house and then went into the woods. I called Jenny outside, and she came to look and said it was probably a black bear since they're everywhere up here. So I went, did my business, and we set off to the ski resort, where we had a good 8-hour run. Afterwards, we stopped at a diner to eat, and then went back to the house. By this point, it was pitch black outside and snowing again. We set up a fire and got the heat on full blast and started blasting some music. We started to drink, and eventually I had to break the ceiling. But also, if I was throwing my boots on anyway, I figured I'd do all my business in the outhouse. I ran out into the snowstorm and to the outhouse once more. This time I slammed the door shut to prevent snow and cold air blowing in my face. I heard the blasting music from inside the house still, but then over that, I heard the crunching sound of footsteps in the snow, passing the outhouse. "Jenny?" I yelled. No answer. The footsteps just walked away. I brought my phone with me, so I just texted her, "Are you outside?" It didn't immediately deliver though, because my cell reception sucked up there. A few minutes passed and I was still in the outhouse. I was just about to finish when the blasting music suddenly stopped. It was just pure silence, minus the sound of snowflakes hitting the ground outside. As soon as I stepped out of the outhouse, I realized it was pitch black out here now. The lights from the house were off. I figured maybe the power went out. I used my phone's flashlight and noticed a fresh pair of footsteps in the snow leading to the house. I followed the footsteps to the front door. They seemed to stop, then continue around the house. I banged on the door and yelled Jenny's name. Suddenly the door opened and an arm pulled me inside the house. It was Jenny. She slammed the door shut and locked it. She whispered that there was a man who tried to open the door, which she locked as soon as I went to the outhouse because she was scared being alone. When she saw the person at the door wasn't me, she cut the power and hid in a corner in the living room and watched in horror as a stranger walked past the living room window slowly, looking inside. I came to the door only a couple minutes after this happened. Jenny told me about the secret cellar in the floor that her dad kept a couple rifles and shotgun in. Navigating in the dark, I found the handle to it and lifted it open. Now using my flashlight, I climbed down the little ladder and grabbed one of the guns off the wall. Then waited on the couch in the dark, ready to turn the lights back on, exposing ourselves to whoever was out there. The closest neighbors were not a short walk. Jenny said it wouldn't have been any of them. Odds are they weren't even in Vermont right now. Once again, the only sound was the sound of snowflakes hitting the ground outside, until the sickening sound of footsteps in the snow outside returned. I took the loaded gun and marched to the front door, opened it, and shot like 3 rounds into the air, screaming. The footstep sounds were gone. I imagine they ran off, and the sound of the shots echoing into the air masked the sound of the footsteps running away. We left the next morning under the recommendation of her father, who said it's best to not be there at the moment. They don't really have anything they're worried about being stolen, so we just got the hell out of there the next day. At least we got our full day of snowboarding in. That horrific night was definitely an experience, to say the least.
Martinelli. And that's where it ends, with possession lost.
My name is Howard. I'm 25 years old, and I live on my family's farm. I help take care of it when my parents are out of town. It's just a little family farm, not a commercial farm or anything like that. My parents want me to take it over when they're too old to take care of it anymore, as I'm the oldest of 3 and the only son. But honestly, I don't really want to. I don't see myself staying in the middle of Arkansas my whole life, especially not after something really weird that happened only last July. My parents...
Usually you'd expect a card for that, so I can understand why the opposition are complaining.
Harry Kane has shown us all his exceptional talents up to this point. It's been a performance of the highest quality.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. It was an almost perfect performance, and when you're playing that way, you just don't...
Hang on, goal here maybe. It's in. That gives them the lead. And well deserved, you have to say.
Well, we can see it again now, and what a wonderful way to pass this is. It's perfect, and it makes the striker's job relatively easy. All he has to do is make the right connection. It's a really good goal.
Read the pass well and cuts it out. Waited beautifully. It's there! That didn't last long. They're back level already. So it's 3 each now as the ball gets rolling again. Alex Iwobi. Alessandro Del Piero. Havertz. Vipers moving the ball forward. What can they do from here? To take the lead! It's a corner, and a chance may be to go in front.
Well, they haven't had too much to cheer for a while, but a goal here would be huge.
Oh, he's given it away. Pressing worked. Now to push further forward. Decent looking cross played in. That's been cleared away. And that's nicely won to see off the threat. Could be a chance. That took a touch on the way out. Throw in to come. And the whistle goes. Free kick awarded. the space to whip it in here. Del Piero. And it's there. He's put that one away very nicely indeed.
Well, when you watch this again, the passing is brilliant. They always have an option. The ball is moved so quickly. The defence just can't get anywhere near them. And then what a finish.
That's a nice cutback. Saved, but not clear. Madison. Good work from Vipers to win it back. Sterling. Decent move, looked to be building, and that's it for now.
This time he didn't come back. You'd have to be a fool to come back after that. I obviously told my sisters why I shot, and I assured them he would not be coming back. We never found out who it was or why. It could have been some team or multiple teams just trying to scare some innocent farmers for fun, or it could have been an actually dangerous person. I used to work as a night restock worker at a supermarket in a somewhat rural town. The store was called Great American. It was the biggest and best supermarket in the area. My shift would be as soon as the store would close at 10. I'd work from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. the latest, restocking the shelves and organizing everything before the next operating day. I, of course, had the keys to the store for the after hours. It would be a team of two, myself and one other, either Terry, Carter, or Alfonso. Tonight, I was supposed to be working with Terry. I arrived to the store and let myself into the back where all the inventory yet to be stocked was. I started my work using the pallet jack to bring a whole pallet of boxes out to the shopping floor. I started with the bread and nuts aisle, rotating the older loaves in the front and putting the newer loaves in the back. Halfway through, I realized I hadn't seen Terry yet. I walked to the back area of the store where the inventory was, where we leave our belongings. He wasn't back there yet. I left the back door cracked open with a door stopper for him when he would show up. So I went back to work for another half hour. And with still no sign of Terry, I once again went to the back of the store. He wasn't in there, but I noticed the back door was shut. I assumed that meant Terry was here somewhere. I went to open the back door and saw the door stopper was outside, which I thought was weird that he kicked it outside instead of bringing it in. I called Terry's name and it echoed through the room. He didn't call back, so I decided to call him. He picked up, sounding like he was in bed, and I asked him if he was at work. He said he wasn't coming in tonight because he was sick. Suddenly, I got the chills. I told him someone kicked the door stopper off the door, and he said it could have just come undone itself. Nobody else was scheduled to work that night. I told him to feel better, and we hung up. I wasn't sure if I was convinced that the door stopper came undone itself, because I kicked it under the door pretty tightly. I did a quick look around just to make sure no one was in the back of the store. And when I didn't see anyone, I went back to work. Though I felt a slight sense of unease the whole time. I was stocking the remainder of the bread when I heard a loud sound echo from across the shopping floor. Okay, now someone had to be in here. I got off my knees and went to the middle aisle that intersected all the other aisles. I looked straight down the aisle and stood there for a hot second. And all the way on the opposite side of the store in the dairy aisle, a man dressed in black walked past the middle aisle, looking down in my direction. I felt my heart drop. It felt like that scene from the movie Signs where the alien walks past the birthday party. I had to think logically that maybe this was someone else filling in for Terry's shift that our boss didn't tell me about. I started to speed walk down the center aisle and yelled "excuse me" very loudly. I looked to the left down every aisle I passed since he went towards the front of the store. In one of those aisles, he was waiting at the end of it, standing there, fully facing my direction. When he saw me, he walked out of sight in the direction I was just coming from. I yelled "excuse me" again, and started to run down that aisle to catch up to him. I didn't get a good look at his face yet. When I got to the front of the aisle by the cash registers, and looked down the direction he went, and I saw him all the way at the end by the bread aisle. Half his body was hidden behind the shelf. His mouth was hanging open, and he started to wave me over, but he didn't say anything. His face was freaking me out. I attempted one more time to speak to him and said, "Who are you?" And he disappeared behind the shelf. I wasn't being paid enough for this. I went outside to sit in my car and call my boss. He picked up and I told him there was some random freak roaming around the store. He told me to get him out of there if I can, or call the police to get him out. I was not going to attempt to physically remove a crazy person from the store, so I called 911. I waited in my car until a police car showed up. I greeted the officer and asked him to follow me inside. We walked around the place looking for the man, and we saw him at one of the aisles again, creepily standing there again as if playing a game. When the police officer commanded him to come here, he actually listened. He was put in handcuffs, and he was the strangest man I'd ever seen. He kept smiling and looking at me non-stop, licking his lips. He had huge bags under his eyes. The only words he spoke were when answering the police officer, saying he was looking for a snack. I didn't like the way he was looking at me as the police officer was walking him back outside to his car. It was this menacing, threatening smile